Hello everyone, Vincent Knight here, and I just want to make this really quick. This poem is called A Tale of Two. It'll say the name at the beginning, and this poem, just a little backstory on it. I've been working on it for a week. I assume that it's finished. I tried to fix up any loose ends whenever I was editing it through the past week. I had just finished it yesterday. I tried to hand it in today. Didn't go exactly as planned, but hopefully I'm still going to post it here so that you can at least see what I tried presenting, I guess you could say. So give me your feedback in the comments below. I would love to hear them. Give me whatever criticism. I'm really open to criticism. Personally, some people don't like it. I honestly like it because it really helps me grow as a writer and as an artist. And also lets me see your perspective, and then we can have like an honest conversation about it. Anyway, this is A Tale of Two. Hope you enjoy. A Tale of Two by Vincent Knight. Preface. The birds are chirping. It is nearly midday. A young woman emerges from out of the shadows of her lustrous estate. Act 1, Part 1. Such beauty has never been gazed upon, but the same aura of innocence the earth harbors just before dawn. As her hair gleamed in the exuberant rays of sunlight, she betook herself to the well-being of life. Never at any instance did she convey narrow-mindedness, but of immense respect for those around her and generosity for those less fortunate. Even though the amorphous entity that of which is decency no longer appears to be present in our modern society, I do most solemnly believe she means only to contribute the essence of compassion and humanity to our most diseased beliefs, if only to let us see as does she, the very strings that bear us all lest we fall into the depths below. We shall swallow our sorrow, and continue through our hollow, and let none follow. End of Part 1. Preface for Part 2. Under a quiet bridge, late at night, heavy rain is pounding away at the random assortments of rubble around him. Only the candlelit streetlights above produce any form of comfort in sub-busy laments. Never has there been such a tragic hero, living only to expand the good in life, now taking weary steps cautious not to slip into the unknown. Living for only admirable intentions has never accumulated such strife, now clinging to unimaginable memories in such a nerve-wracking state that has prolonged for what has felt like centuries. Did I make a mistake, City? Carefully grasping the delicate memory of she. It was years ago, and yet I recall it still. Momentary gaps of insanity followed by a plague of mind-torturing images. All this had rendered me ruinous, bordering that of the mentally ill. As frigidly brisk water runs down the drawn-out cracks, the forsaken bear witness to the frivolous attempts of the already departed begging for recompense. As for me, I will remain here, until death for either one of us is undoubtedly clear. End of Part 2, end of Act 1. Preface for Act 2. Narrator takes the stage, opens to a young girl crying out of deep sorrow, overlooking her quiet, bleak town. Now such a heartbroken tale I do woefully tell. It all began as do the most, in late autumn. A young girl foretold her parents' death, and now she dwells on the outskirts of town that I wander quite often. I witnessed her weeping and could not help but addressing that she was out fairly late for a young girl who should be in bed sleeping. As I continued, casually as I often do, I asked, "What tragedy has befallen unto you?" She replied with seeping turmoil, "I just witnessed my parents' lives unravel." I, caught off guard as I assume most would have been, inquired as to how they met their demise. The story she told was quite riveting, how her parents were so invested in a delusional state that they could not comprehend their actions. As to this, travesty did regretfully happen. They killed each other, over a quarrel that seemed so minor, while she stood in the doorway, stricken by horror. Though I feel her story was mostly lies, so again I inquired as to the location of her residence, as to prove to her this nonsense. She reluctantly agreed, and towards her home she led me. End of Act 2, Part 2. Preface. The wind is blowing heavily against the distant trees. The moon is full, the streets are barren. Her home was nothing more or less than an average lower to middle class home. Act 3. Now trying to fully grasp as to why I set off to this young girl's house, making sure not to speak these thoughts aloud, I asked her, looking back now, a much too off-putting question. "How exactly did your parents kill one another?" All she uttered were a few inaudible words that I had expected to some extent, close if not absolute disassociation in regards to her growingly realistic invention. I could at the time have no way of comprehending what it must have felt like to lose a mother or father. Not only that, but to watch such an endeavor, and to be left only to wander about, desperately longing for the light of a new day to come around. As we entered the home, I instantly felt the chill so cold it struck deep within my bones. It was as if a phantom had tried to pass through me, but was lost instantly within some form of purgatory. As I looked down towards my side to observe her reaction, the entire home was hit with what I called an instant contraction. Every door, window, and miscellaneous cupboard, for whatever reason was left open, immediately slammed shut. I began to wonder if her infatuation towards our current situation had somehow entered from her mind into mine. I believed that theory somewhat, but I could not shake this feeling of distraught. Was I merely a memory inside of her? Or am I but a wretched being that comes forth whenever she remembers? No, this is reality, and her vision couldn't have been any more than a dream. Now in this I had no sense of disbelief, basing my suspicions on her reaction, or rather, lack of one, could have simply meant my accusations would remain a simple infraction, bringing me immense relief and an overwhelming wave of mental peace. That was, until we made it to her parents' bedroom. Within this sight, all joy seemed to be erased from time. I was completely and utterly consumed. There was no exit from this nightmare. We had both been ensnared. Permanently, with not a moment of mercy, was I subjected to the unparalleled sight of her parents' remains. They were mangled and physically deformed to extents I could have never imagined before. In this moment, I felt compelled to do something, if only to shield her from such pain. We fled far away. End of Act 3. Preface. Staring off into the sunset, he gives all he has so that she can live her life and no longer be haunted by the past. Act 4, Part 1. I knew that her parents would not have wanted their daughter to be left there alone, but me being completely capsulated by the ongoing tragedy that had plagued her alongside me had rendered me equally to the emotional status of a simple-minded drone. I've been constantly paranoid and ever subtly slipping into this void that I fear will inevitably consume me, leaving only a shadow of whom I had been formerly. Still within my debilitated state, I suspect I was seen as a paragon for doing such a selfless action, all because I had inexplicably relieved at least some of her emotional weight, by doing all within my power to instigate an ever so slight to miraculous change. None of my actions would yield to be frivolous. I had reimbursed her innocence by relinquishing all sense of happiness. End of Part 1. Preface. Looking back on whom they once were, and what will become of them both in their final hour together. Part 2. I feel that even though our journey together has kept us both in the darkness for so long, lasting all of these years, falling only to wipe away the ever-sustaining tears that seem to run on and on. Despite our varying emotional circumstances, I watched you grow from a frightened, soft-spoken young girl, thrown into the wreckage of her dismantled world, into a well-adjusted woman willing to offer her hand to those in need, so in turn, they will continue to spread peace. With an insightful and loving attitude, I can be truthful in saying that there are few who can compare to you. Over these years, I know that you've come to see the world the same as I. The once pulsating heart of fear has disappeared and shed light to once sincere, and from your luminous, ever so breathtaking blue eyes shall never again weep somber tears, but observe and maintain the beauty of life. This world has grown to be so cold, and its future may remain unknown. Still you must seek humanity, for without relief there can never be peace, and without peace there is only anarchy. I tell you this not out of fear for what you might become, but out of clear, uninterrupted love that you may never come undone. Lest you fall into the depths below, you need only remember that wherever you go, I shall unconditionally follow, so that even within death will you never be alone. As you prevail and embody the light, I shall forever linger in the cold, empty night. Sincerely yours, forevermore. End of Act 4.